It wasn't just a military conquest. It was a multi-billion Reichsmark suicide. How did the world's most efficient war machine, a system that devoured entire nations in mere days, collapse into a nightmare of its own making? Why did a fortress of steel, backed by the industrial fury of a continent, tremble before a 17-year-old girl in a threadbare coat? And why did the masters of Europe believe that a girl with schoolgirl braids was a variable they could simply ignore? But that was their fatal delusion. While the generals toasted to a pacified Yugoslavia, the truth was being forged in the freezing shadows of the Kozara Mountains. The only warning they received came from Lepa Radić. They mocked her. They called her a peasant. They treated her like a minor error in a grand calculation, right up until she became their executioner. Why did the most powerful war machine in history ignore the only tactic that could save them? The answer wasn't in the classified vaults, but in the hands of the underdog. April 1941, Bosanska Gradiška. The spring air in the Balkans usually tastes of blooming plum trees and the damp, waking earth. But this year, the atmosphere is heavy with something metallic, something industrial. The Wehrmacht is moving. To the eyes of a 15-year-old girl standing on the edge of a dusty road, the German army doesn't look like a group of men. It looks like a single, monstrous organism made of oil and steel. The technical reality of this invasion is a concept the world is only beginning to name: the Blitzkrieg. Think of it like a human nervous system. The panzers are the limbs, the Stuka bombers are the teeth, and the shortwave radio is the brain. By concentrating every ounce of kinetic energy into a single razor-thin point, they don't just push against an army, they puncture it. In the command rooms in Belgrade, the generals are staring at maps that are already obsolete. They issue orders to units that no longer exist. They speak into telephones that have gone dead. The massive system of the Yugoslav state, built over decades, collapses in exactly 264 hours, 11 days. While the high-ranking officers are busy polishing their medals for the surrender ceremonies, the ghost in the machine is already waking up. In a small house in the village of Gašnica, Lepa Radić is not looking at a map. She is looking at her school books. She is a girl of logic, of quiet observation. She sees the German officers riding through her streets with the effortless arrogance of tourists who have bought the land with blood. She sees her father and her uncles being led away. She sees the new order beginning to categorize her neighbors into those who are useful and those who are to be discarded. The system believes it has won because the signatures are on the papers. It believes that because it owns the roads, it owns the people. But the roads are a trap. While the official army marches into the darkness of prisoner of war camps, Lepa is moving in the opposite direction. She isn't carrying a heavy rucksack or a field radio. She is carrying a single stolen rifle and the memory of a world that didn't belong to the Reich. She disappears into the Kozara Mountains. These peaks are not just terrain. They are a jagged limestone fortress. The German machines, so efficient on the flat plains of Poland and France, begin to struggle here. The tanks designed for the black box of rapid movement find themselves choking on the narrow, rocky trails. The technical failure of the machine in the mountains is simple. The Blitzkrieg requires speed, and the Kozara demands a crawl. When a Panzer III attempts to climb a 30-degree incline of loose shale, the tracks lose their bite, the engine overshoots its cooling capacity, and the multi-ton Predator becomes a stationary target. Lepa is there to witness the friction. She is no longer the girl with the braids. She is a partisan. She spends her days in the freezing mist of the high ridges, her hands once used to delicate needlework, now stained with the black grease of a Mauser bolt. She isn't just a soldier. She is a shadow that the system cannot compute. The 7th SS Volunteer Mountain Division is sent to solve the nuisance. These are the elite. They are men who pride themselves on their cold, forensic approach to warfare. Their commander, a man who views the Balkans as a disorganized chessboard, dismisses the reports of a teenage girl leading logistics for the resistance. It is a peasant fantasy, he likely thought. A girl cannot stop a division. This is the crystallized arrogance of the era. The Reich believed that power was a matter of volume, more steel, more men, more noise. They ignored the fact that a single grain of sand, placed in the right gear, can seize the entire engine. Lepa becomes that grain of sand. She moves through the villages at night, a phantom in a threadbare coat. She organizes the invisible agents, the grandmothers who hide bread under their floorboards, the children who watch the German patrols and count the trucks. She builds a web of intelligence that bypasses the broken telephone lines of the fallen state. While the SS commanders are reviewing their impeccable logistics over wine in seized villas, they are blissfully unaware of the hammer that is being forged in the silence of the woods. One evening, a German patrol stops a young girl on a mountain path. She looks small, shivering, and insignificant. The corporal mocks her, asking if she's looking for a lost goat. He sees a victim. He does not see that her eyes are recording the serial numbers on his vehicle, the caliber of his sidearm, and the exact timing of his breath. She offers a shy, submissive smile. He lets her pass. It is a fatal mistake. He treated the silence as submission. He believed the boss, the Third Reich, had already tamed these hills. But he had underestimated the mountain. It wasn't surrender. It was the quiet before a storm of hidden rifles aimed directly at the heart of his pride. The Weiss offensive is about to begin. The Germans are preparing a massive circular sweep, a literal ring of steel designed to tighten around the Kozara Mountains and crush everything inside. They call it a cleansing operation. They expect a panicked retreat. They expect the partisans to break and run like animals. But as the first German artillery shells begin to tear through the canopy of the forest, Lepa Radić isn't running. She is standing at the rear of a column of 300 civilians, women clutching infants, old men who can barely walk. She is 15 years old, and she is the only thing standing between them and the machine. Q. 1 February 1943, Bosanska Krupa. The winter in the Balkans doesn't just bite, it hollows you out. The air is a thin, frozen veil that carries the scent of charred wood and wet wool. Lepa Radić is 17 years old. She has spent the last 3 days in a space where time has no meaning. A basement room where the only constant is the rhythmic dripping of melting ice and the heavy, rhythmic thud of jackboots on the floorboards above. She was captured during the frantic retreat through the Gurmech Mountains. Her rifle, a stolen Mauser, had finally run out of lead, and then it had jammed. Think of a bolt-action rifle like a simple door latch. If a single grain of frozen mud or a sliver of brass from a spent casing enters the chamber, the fatal flaw is triggered. The metal expands, the bolt seizes, and the weapon becomes nothing more than a heavy, useless stick of wood and iron. In that moment of mechanical failure, the system caught her. Now she sits across from the officers of the 7th SS Volunteer Mountain Division. These men are the Prinz-Eugen, an elite unit of ethnic Germans who believe they are the architects of a new, sterile world. To them, Lepa is not a soldier. She is a biological error. They look at her swollen face, her trembling hands, and they see a peasant girl who should be crying for her mother. They cannot understand why she is silent. The SS interrogation protocol is a fatal system designed to break the human will through the precision of exhaustion. Input: 72 hours of sleep deprivation, combined with the psychological weight of isolation. The German logic dictates that the output must be a total collapse of the individual's loyalty. They believe that every human has a price, and that a 17-year-old girl's price must be very low. The commanding officer, let's call him the representative of the Reich, leans forward. He doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a bureaucrat. He smells of expensive tobacco and lavender soap. He places a piece of paper on the scarred wooden table. "Names," he says. His voice is calm, almost fatherly. "Give us the names of your leaders. Give us the locations of the hidden caches in the mountains. Do this, and you walk out of this room. You go home. You can have a life again." This is the crystallized arrogance of the system. They believe that life is something they can grant or take away like a permit. They prioritize the procedure of the confession over the reality of the soul. Lepa looks at him. Her eyes are bloodshot, her vision blurred from the beatings. But she isn't looking at the man. She is looking through him. She sees the villages they burned. She sees the faces of the children she tried to hide in the snow. She understands a truth that the SS, with all their maps and intelligence reports, will never grasp. You cannot buy what has already been given away. She had given her life to the resistance the moment she picked up that first rifle. You cannot threaten a person with a debt they have already paid. The officer loses his patience. He mocks her. He calls her a little partisan whore. He tells her that her comrades have already forgotten her, that they are probably huddled in a cave, laughing at her sacrifice. He uses the weapon of doubt, trying to find a fracture in her resolve. But Lepa remains a wall of ideological steel. While the Prinz-Eugen division believed they were the masters of the mountains, they were actually blind. They treated the silence of the woods as a sign of their dominance. They scoffed at the ragtag partisans, believing that because they lacked uniforms and a central command, they lacked a soul. They believed their machine, their tanks, their mountain guns, their telegraph lines was invincible, but they had fatally underestimated the nature of the fire they had started. It wasn't surrender. It was a slow burn of hatred that was spreading from house to house, basement to basement. The officers in Bosanska Krupa grow frustrated. The black box of their interrogation is failing. They have applied the pain. They have applied the pressure. But the output remains a haunting, echoing zero. "If you will not speak," the officer sneers, "then the rope will speak for you. He believes the threat of the gallows is the ultimate hammer. He believes that the sight of the noose will finally force the peasant girl to crawl. He treats the upcoming execution as a public relations exercise, a way to show the townspeople what happens when you defy the massive system. But he is ignoring the terrifying reality of his own creation. By taking her to the public square, he isn't ending the resistance. He is broadcasting it. He is about to take the quiet, internal courage of a single girl and turn it into a frequency that will vibrate through every heart in the Balkans. The SS thought they were the ones in control of the narrative. They believed they were the ones punishing the underdog. But as they prepare the timber for the gallows, a darker truth begins to emerge, a truth that the Prince Eugen will only realize when it's too late. The boss, the collective spirit of a people pushed to the edge of extinction, is about to punish their arrogance. While the officers check the tension of the rope, they are blissfully unaware that they are not just killing a girl, they are lighting a fuse. The silence in the interrogation room wasn't the silence of defeat. It was the silence of a bomb, waiting for the spark. February 8th, 1943. The public square. The morning light in Bosanska Krupa is a bruised, sickly purple. A light snow is falling, each flake settling on the shoulders of the townspeople like ash. They have been forced into the square at bayonet point, a captive audience for a ritual of order. At the center of the square stands the gallows. It is a crude thing, 2 upright timbers and a crossbeam hacked from local pine. It smells of fresh sap and old death. Lepa Radić is marched toward the structure. She is small, her feet dragging slightly in the slush, her hands bound tightly behind her back with thin wire. The wire has bitten deep into her wrists, but she does not flinch. To the SS officers watching from the raised platform, she looks like a broken doll. They see a girl whose story is over. But as she reaches the foot of the ladder, something in the atmosphere shifts. The German colonel, the personification of the system's arrogance, steps forward. He wants a clean ending. He wants a victory that he can file in a report. He looks at the crowd, then back at Lepa. He offers one final desperate bargain. "Tell us the names," he says, his breath blooming in the cold air. "Tell us who your leaders are. Tell us where they hide. If you speak now, the rope stays empty. You can live." This is the crystallized arrogance of the Reich. He truly believes that at the edge of the grave, the individual will always choose the system over the soul. He believes that the fear of the dark is stronger than the love of the light. He expects a plea, a sob, a surrender. Lepa looks up. Her face is a map of bruises, her eyes swollen, but the fire in them is blinding. She doesn't speak to the colonel. She speaks to the people. "I am not a spy," she cries out, her voice cutting through the mechanical hum of the idling German trucks. "I am a fighter for the people. Fight, you people. Do not let them take your land." The colonel's face hardens. He gestures to the executioner. The noose is slipped over her head. The hemp is rough, stiff with frost. It is a fatal flaw of the human body that the neck is so fragile, and the system has spent centuries perfecting the art of breaking it. Think of a trap door like a simple mechanical release. It is designed to use gravity as a weapon, turning the weight of the victim against their own spine. It is a cold, forensic calculation of physics. "One last time," the colonel sneers, his voice trembling with a frustration he cannot explain. "Give us the names." Lepa stands on the edge of the drop. She looks at the men in their polished uniforms, their silver skulls, their perfect logistics, and then she delivers the prophecy. "I am not alone," she shouts. "My comrades will tell you their names when they come to avenge me." The trap door falls. For a moment, there is only the sound of the wind and the sharp, final snap of the wood. Then, silence. The SS officers turned away, convinced they had silenced a nuisance. They claimed that the peace was restored because the rope had done its job. But they had made a catastrophic error in their black box of control. They thought they were burying a girl. They didn't realize they were planting a seed. The bitter victory of the Reich that morning was the beginning of their total collapse in the Balkans. Lepa's words didn't just fade into the mountain mist. They became a frequency. Within weeks, the ranks of the partisans swelled. Farmers who had been afraid to fight found their courage in the memory of a 17-year-old who refused to be bought. The Prinz Eugen division, once the hunters, found themselves hunted in every shadow, every ravine, and every village. History eventually caught up with the massive system. The Reich that was supposed to last 1,000 years burned to the ground in less than 12. The men who stood on that platform in Bosanska Krupa were executed or scattered to the winds of history, their names forgotten, their medals tarnished. But Lepa Radić remained. Today, she stands as the youngest people's hero of Yugoslavia. Her face is cast in bronze, her name etched into the stone of monuments. But the real monument isn't the medal. It's the haunting reminder of what a single, unbroken soul can do when it refuses to bow to the machine. We look back at 1943 and we see a different world. But do we see the same hubris in our society today? Do we still believe that systems, algorithms, and power can crush the human spirit? Or have we forgotten that the smallest grain of sand is still enough to stop the largest engine? The cost of integrity is often everything. Lepa Radić paid that price. And in doing so, she became a ghost that the Reich could never exorcise. DEFIANCE. If you believe that stories like Lepa Radić's deserve to be remembered, join our ranks by subscribing and like this video. It is the only way we can ensure these voices are never truly silenced. We have synthesized this narrative from reputable historical archives and verified sources. However, the fog of war often extends to the history books. If you spot any inaccuracies or have additional details to share, please correct us in the comments. We strive for the absolute truth, and your knowledge helps us get there. Thank you for keeping history alive.